I hope you enjoy my stories. Instead of just clicking thumbs down, please comment and share how we can do better. If you do like our video, then please like and subscribe.
Not really a Karen, but a close relative, I think. Let's call him Ken, or whatever the male term for a Karen is.
I'm at a large retail store driving through the parking lot, looking for a space. I see an empty spot ahead and start to turn into it, only to be greeted by another car honking its horn, sitting in the space across from it.
The guy inside is waving his hands furiously and gesturing at me, while the woman in the passenger seat attempts to cover her face. I finished parking and got out and gestured to the other driver with upturned palms and a "what's wrong" expression.
I was actually concerned. The guy might have been in some sort of trouble or needed help, but I wasn't expecting what happened.
He shut his car off and thrust his door open, actually hitting the SUV beside him, and screamed to a hole, before even getting out of the car.
I started to get the picture before he even said the next words.
"You did that on purpose," he asserted, then flung some profanities. I won't type here as they're too explicit, although one of the tamer ones was calling me a cousin f-ing redneck, mother f-er.
Real class act, this guy.
During this tirade, his presumably girlfriend had also exited the vehicle, and now had the look of someone who wished they could physically become invisible. I listened to his rant about my deliberate and personal attack against him, which I perpetrated by parking my car, preventing him from pulling through spaces. To wit, he would now have to reverse out of his parking space, which was just an unforgivable inconvenience. I guess it's a sign of getting older or wiser, but probably just older, that this guy didn't make me lose my shit on him. It wouldn't have been too long ago that I'd have smashed his face 2 words into his second sentence.
Instead, I let him get the whole rant out, nearly a full 2 minutes of it.
He made a hell of a scene, and by the end of it I was laughing. Not on the inside, I was laughing in his face.
He didn't like being laughed at, apparently, and stepped back, shutting his door so he could approach me.
He had his hands up at shoulder height at this point, looking like he might take a swing at me.
I took a step closer and said in a decisively stern tone, "Let me get this straight.
You got out here yelling at me because you don't know how to drive a f-ing car, and that's somehow my fault. Is that right?" And I leaned in so close our noses almost touched.
I could smell alcohol in his breath.
He stepped back and didn't swing. Big surprise. Someone acting like a loud douchebag. He instead walked back, or rather stomped like a little kid, pitching a fit, back to his car, which the girl was no longer in, but instead standing beside with her door closed, got in and slammed the door.
He motioned to the girl to get in. As he started the engine, she shook her head no, and he put it in reverse and slammed backwards out of the parking space. Into the big 4x4 pickup behind him to his right.
The tow hitch obliterated his back bumper and didn't let it go.
He was in a full rage again at this point and drove away, leaving the accident, his presumably girlfriend, and to the credit of Universal Karma, his bumper with license plate behind. This entire exchange lasted a bit less than 5 minutes, but it's 5 minutes I'll treasure.
Not one but two.
About 8 years ago, I was starting a new job. I needed it.
I had been laid off of a very good paying job about a year earlier and was working an in-between job to get by till something better came along, and this was it.
I'm just a waiter, but as anyone who works in the service industry knows, not all waitering jobs are alike.
In the right place, I can bring home over $1,000 over the course of 4 nights.
Anyway, as the new guy, the first was given the task of opening up the restaurant.
This meant arranging tables and setting them up, stocking the bar and waiter station, counting the register, confirming reservations for the day. As I was new and still figuring out where things were and went, I came in about a half an hour early to get ready for our 11:30 opening.
Before anyone else on staff showed up to work, a loud knock comes from our locked front door. I go to see who's there, and 2 elderly women want to come in and be seated for service.
I tell them we opened for service at 11:30 and they weren't having it.
They wanted to be seated now. They have a Groupon which was set to expire and they demand service. They insisted our website stated we open at 10:30. Told them we couldn't have people in the restaurant while we were setting up, but we'd be happy to take care of them when we open.
They demanded to speak to a manager. Told them I was the only one here. Then they asked me if I was a manager. I said no, and they replied with, "I look too stupid to be a manager."
They then proceeded to seat themselves in our outdoor patio area. Fine. They were out of my way. I could proceed with my tasks, except they decided to start calling the restaurant. The phone would ring. I would go over to pick it up. They would swear at me, hang up, and then do it again.
After the third or fourth time, I just let the phone ring. The other old lady got up and just started pounding on the door to be let in while the other was on the phone letting it ring. Mind you, even if I did let them in, the cooks weren't even in to start their own setup and prep. At this point, the other waiter on schedule shows up and asks what's going on. He goes out to tell them the same things I did, and they gave him the same work over treatment of yelling demands and insults.
How dare we deny them service? We're going to get fired. They're going to have our jobs. 11:30 rolls around. The kitchen is up and ready for service. We're up and ready for service.
The two old ladies barge in and shove their Groupon coupon in my coworker's face, to which he replies, "Ma'am, our establishment does not accept Groupons."
If you would read the name and address of the restaurant the Groupon is attached to and compared it to the name of our restaurant on the front door you've been pounding on for the past hour, you would have discovered you were at the wrong restaurant. They slink off.
Doesn't end there.
They went on to Zagat and posted a review about as long as this post over what a horrible restaurant experience they had. We were infested with rats, the place was filthy, and we should all be fired and shut down.
I was a store manager at Starbucks for 4 years, and I had the pleasure of meeting a Karen. She came in and ordered a venti cappuccino. My assistant manager was at the bar with an experienced barista, and they were cranking out the beverages until this one. 1 return, okay, no problem.
2 returns, okay, but there is no way this one is wrong.
3 returns.
At this point she's calling the assistant and the barista stupid and untrained. So I step in, call her over to the other end of the counter, so that they could catch up with the drinks that are now piling up. I tell her she should not speak to my staff like that they are both experienced and are making the drink to Starbucks standard. Here, what the woman wanted was us to put shots in a cup, then proceed to skim the foam off of all of our milk pitchers. In the past, we had large milk pitchers that we would steam as we went, so there was always milk ready. Now they steam milk per drink, to fill the cup the rest of the way. Tiffany knows how to make my drink. Tiffany had recently been fired for no showing for work 2 times as a supervisor, delaying the store opening and costing us money and customer satisfaction.
New boyfriend, bad influence story for another day.
Me, if you want 2 shots in a cup of foam, you have to order it that way.
A cappuccino is part foam and part liquid milk, which is why they made it the way they did. There is a standard recipe for cappuccinos. She continued to berate us for our service and her drink being wrong. So when she finally got out all that she needed to get out, I asked her to go elsewhere for her coffee, as clearly we were not able to serve her as she wanted. She was not expecting that response. Clearly she was accustomed to having her ass kissed. And I was not going to let my staff be treated like that. I don't remember if she left in a huff. I was headed to call my district manager to let her know I threw someone out and asked them not to return.
I got major kudos from the staff there and the customers who were within earshot for standing up to a bully and defending my staff, who I knew were in the right and at no point were combative with her.
My district manager knew I had to be pushed to the edge to make a decision like that, and even had she not been okay with it, I had a lot of support to back me up. I think this happened before they were referred to as Karens.
I'd recently purchased a home and was in the process of repairing it. It was a steamy hot day and I was waiting for the HVAC repairman, hoping he could resurrect the air conditioner without breaking the bank. The front driveway was shaded with a huge pecan tree that was like a canopy of shade. There weren't many trees on the block, so there were frequently cars parked in the shade.
I didn't blame them.
As long as they weren't blocking my driveway, I had no concerns with who parked there.
I was on a ladder on the side of the house and heard a car stop and park.
I was hoping it was the HVAC guy, but it was a sedan with 2 ladies. She parked so that her car completely blocked my driveway.
I waved and tried to get her attention before she exited her car.
She looked directly at me and chose to ignore me. I began walking toward her car. I am not even annoyed at this point. She can have some shade, she just can't block the driveway. So I waved again, but she was hurrying to exit her car.
I asked her to move forward about 6 feet to leave my driveway clear. She ignored me. The other lady with her clearly heard me as she turned and looked at me.
Louder now, I said, "Excuse me."
You need to move your car out of my driveway.
She continued down the street with an armload of paperwork. No response whatsoever. I followed the ladies.
I was now getting annoyed with her obvious decision to ignore me completely. I saw my egg guy approaching, so I flagged him down and told him I would have the driveway open for him in a minute. I was gaining on Karen. I saw her stop, so I jogged the 20 steps to her and again asked her to move her car ahead a bit.
She acted as though I am not even there, so I repeated my request and she repeated her performance. Okay, so now I was pissed. I stepped into her personal space and loudly repeat my request.
She looked directly at me and stated that it is a state-funded street and she will park wherever she wants. I agreed, but I also informed her that she was impeding my access, and that isn't within her rights.
She repeated that she will park wherever she wants.
I asked whom she is visiting, and she said she has several friends who are on her roster to visit today.
I looked, the papers are of a religious nature.
I said, you will move away from my driveway, or you can explain your rights to security.
And I headed for home? She decided to further state her rights, and I decided to make that call. The evac guy had parked closely behind her car to glean a scant bit of shade. He said he is eating his lunch quickly. He was a bit early, so I offered him a cold drink of water while I make a call. He said he's fine, so I proceeded to find the number for our security guys.
I called, and he says that they've had problems with her in the past and he would gladly refresh her with the rules again.
He was there in minutes. I explained that she is welcome to park in the shade, just not to block access to my driveway. I pointed to where she had gone and left to get the repairman started.
We were in the backyard when I heard a shriek.
Apparently, Karen felt it was okay to push the security dude. It's not. By the time I got to the front yard, the police were arriving. They arrested her at the request of the security dude and her car was towed. Karma got Karen that day.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.